As a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you as a result of my research about atoms this much. There is no matter as such. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particle of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent spirit. This mind is the matrix of all matter. Hello everyone, and today I want to talk about the first of the seven Hermetic principles. The first one being the principle of mentalism, which states this: to all is mind, the universe is mental. And I want to follow up with this sentence: there is no such thing as matter. Basically, when we talk about Tial, we talk about God in His fullness and the reality of our universe. Is mental. There is a consciousness, there is a mind behind it. That before being physical, this world is made of different energies that are from different planes, which is either astral or spiritual. But fundamentally, there is a consciousness behind it. That the physical world, the physical that we see, is not fundamentally visible and exists in other forms, which has different ramifications and some that are helpful, and even on the topic of mind, the mindset that we're supposed to have to live with mind over matter. You probably already understand it in a maybe subconscious matter, but I'm going to try to expound on it and teach you useful ways to use it, how you can understand that fundamentally when you learn how to master your mind, you also learn how to master your external reality. So first, there is no such thing as matter. While today modern science seems to be walking in the direction of proving that statement to be true, especially with things like the new science like quantum physics. The only reality is mind and observations. But observations are not of things. To see the universe as it really is, we must abandon our tendency to conceptualize observations as things. One benefit of switching humanity to a correct perception of the world is the resulting joy of discovering the mental nature of the universe. Within the principle of mentalism, there is another principle hidden, which is this idea that when we shift our consciousness or our mental images, we can actually shift or create for ourselves a new reality. In my video, the projector effect, there is no matter. I actually talk about it in more detail, how particles act in both particle form and wave form, matter, energy, but visible by the five senses, invisible, and how the act of a conscious observer of measured. This is where you see a shift from one state to the other, from the potential energy to the physical matter. When I talk about the quantum observer effect. If you want to go look at it more, go back to my video projector effect. But basically, the final result is this. What you need to understand is that our consciousness has the power to shift our reality. If you change your mind, you basically change yourself physically and you're in your world. What you see as physical actually exists in the form of energy. And that energy is basically vibration that the particles, this physical world is made of particles. And when they vibrate at a certain speed, they become energy. And energy that is slowed down, that is visible, that is made visible to our eye, is what the physical world is. It's what matter is. You know, there's Einstein's equation, E equals mc square, mc square, where m is mass and E energy. There's this link between energy and matter. What we understand is this: that consciousness comes before the physical world, that the material comes before the material. The same way that there's a steering wheel, whether for a car or for a boat. If consciousness or the mental is the steering wheel, then the boat would be the physical. If you shift one, the other shifts with it. And more than that, the state of our world that we are the result of is the result of everybody's consciousness, humanity's collective consciousness. It's a group project basically, where we're all painting together, putting our own colors, our own consciousness. The world we have created is a product of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. If we want to change the world, we have to change our thinking. No problem can be solved from the same consciousness that created it. We must learn to see the world anew. Now we go into the concept of imagination. Because what's interesting about the imagination is, first, the body, when you imagine something vividly in your mind, the body acts as if it was physically happening because your nervous system doesn't know the difference between something that is happening physically and something that you deeply and detailedly imagine. Your nervous system reacts in the same way. What's interesting about the word imagination is this: the word in Hebrew, imagination, is yetzer, which is the idea of a frame, a framework that you have. Or again, the idea of being formed, a potter forming an image. This is what the word imagination is. And the imagination, the mind, gives us the ability to mold reality, mold ourselves. As a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. There have been many acts of mental visualization. The Olympic and the high level athletes, they all use this act of mental imagery where they do a and detailed and specific reproduction of their routine in their mind to activate their nervous system, and help their body create these links to get their body used to this connection to act in a certain way. And there have been a lot of improvements when it comes to Russian Olympic athletes in the 20th century, where they would do a regime of mental practice of visualization, really highly detailed in a disciplined manner, following the same step that they would do during the routine, whether it's a marksman or a weightlifter or a skate dancer. And the result is that many Soviet athletes who were actually newcomers in the 1950s, 1952, I believe, while they realized that the Soviets, they matched or exceeded the nations who had decade of Olympic experience, because they realized there was this pattern of using of mental imagery of imagination to affect the nervous system, and they realized that their athletes learned skills quicker, even recovered it quicker. And there was this focus on the mental. Another example of a psychology test, Jude Biasiotto, who had a basketball free throw imagery experiment. It was a test to kind of show the impact of mental imagery and visualization on actual physical improvement. So the free throw experiment had four different groups where they would have different training conditions to see how much they would improve their free throw in a certain period of time. The first group had no practice. The second only had mental imagery practice. The third group has physical practice only, and the fourth group had mental plus physical practice. Since I couldn't find much evidence for the original and the statistics, I kind of went on ChatGPT and saw the multiple times that different universities recreated it and found a mashup of the averages of the statistics. So the improvement that you see is, for those who had no practice, 0 to 2% improvement. Those with mental imagery practice, 4 to 8% improvement. Those with physical practice only, 8 to 15% improvement. And those who had the greatest improvement, 12 to 20%, was those who who mixed mental and physical practice together. So you see that even though it was lesser than physical practice, those who only practiced in their minds also saw an improvement, the impact of the mental on the physical. And so when you see this concept of mind over matter, it's really, really present within world-class athletes who all make use of it. There are different many quotes, whether it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, who said, "I visualize myself as Mr. Universe. I was walking on stage already a winner." Albert Einstein, that says that imagination is more important than knowledge, because his theory of relativity was based on just imaginary process, thought experiment, having fun in his mind. Not really from calculus, that was later, but it started from his mind, exploring his mind. Or Beethoven, who said, "I carry my thoughts about music with me long before I write them down." There, even when it comes to artists like Michelangelo, who says, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free." Basically, he had a block of marble and he saw the image of what he wanted to create. You know, he was a potter. He was molding something. It first came in his mind, the image, and then he molded it. And then what he saw the vision come to life. This idea of having a vision and bringing it into the physical through action. I think about this verse that says that God doesn't do anything in the world before speaking through the mouths of his prophets. He would tell them what was going to happen, but first he had to put a word, this seed, into the minds of the people so that they could have their minds aligned. Because humanity also is part of this conscious creating process. So seed must be sown into the heart, into the minds of men before you can see the fruit. And even Bruce Lee said, "As you think, so shall you become," which is really similar to "as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is." Or be renewed by the transfiguration, be transfigured by the renewing of the mind. You see all of those concepts of the mind coming first change into the physical, even through movies like The Matrix, where Neo, who is kind of a parable for a Christic figure, goes from simply human to a superpowered individual. And what was blocking him was him not actually being able to see himself as the chosen one. There's even one of my favorite psychological concepts, the idea of the self-image, which comes from the book Maxwell Maltz, Psycho-Cybernetics. Subconscious image of ourselves, who we believe ourselves to be, which is there in the background. It's like a framework where we're limited in our abilities, our action, what we're able to do and to bring about in the world by that self-image. Basically, if we don't change from the inside first, then the external will always catch up to us and bring us back to the level where we have our self-image. There's this snapback effect where you do so much action, but your being, who you see yourself as, is like this post, and there's an elastic. There's always going to be something that's going to drag you back. So you got to change the identity first, identity shifting. So, in conclusion, what does it mean? How do we use it? What advantage can this give us? Well, we understand that we need to change our identity, shift our identity, have a little self belief. If we want, if we cannot see ourselves doing something or being someone first here, and allow that soul seed to be so deep in us, not on the surface, on the level of thought, but to experience it, to feel it, to imagine it, to embody it, imagine it in a way as if we were going through the motion repeatedly until it anchors itself. We can use those techniques to become a new person, and then we start acting out in the physical. We understand too that the mind is the limit, but it's also your limitation. Whatever you can perceive yourself as, you can grow into. It's important in the concept of spirituality, of sonship, where we are to, as sons of God, progress from, seeing ourselves as simply human to stepping into our own divinity. 1 John 4:17 says, as he is, talking about Christ, so are you in this world. When it comes to personally me, believing that I could actually go and heal, it was first seeing other people, perceiving other people doing it on the outside, having an example and saying, okay, I'm going to see myself doing it, becoming it in my mind, and then going outside and doing it. When I would go and do it, I would see the blockages of my mindset. Oh, it's not going to work. What if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? Trying to stop my actions. But I decided to step into that new identity and said, what if it happens? Making myself believe and acting according to it. And I would see people get healed of different stuff. So again, your mind is the limit. Whatever you can perceive yourself as, you can grow into, but it's also your limitation, your framework. Therefore, if you learn how to harness the power of your mind, you can actually harness. You're talking about not to. You're talking about this is the world. There's a foundation underneath that you don't see. There are rules, principles that work, that shift the balance. Here on top, when you're working the physical, you're working matter against matter, and it can be hard, sometimes tough. But when you work on level of mentality, that's where you can be even more efficient. Like those Olympic athletes that didn't only work physically, but they worked in conjunction with the mental, and they were even more performant. So that's pretty much all for today. The principle of mentalism. The universe is mental. Anyway, that's all for today, and I'll wish you a good one. I'll see you next week. Peace.